Hi team, welcome to your next advancing in Tableau assignment. So we're going to change data sets. We're going to do sort of a strategic attendance analysis for Division I football. Um, Football is big business. I know a lot of you all may not be into sports, so we're only going to look at this data one time. Now there is a lot in the data and it's nasty, so we are going to kind of clean it up. What we'll kind of go through here is we'll do, before we even get things like text to columns, search, left, right, length, things of that nature. We'll then bring it into Tableau. We're going to build some calculated fields. I'll show you tooltip stuff. I am going to kind of go a little bit hands off. I'll do a little bit more kind of best practices, start transitioning into that storytelling piece, or at least I hope so. By letting you kind of guide it. And again, I have ways for you to differentiate yourself from everyone else. Due date, CD2L, by the time you see this, I'll have the date put in here. Okay, so let's talk about the business application here. So you're going to be a professional consultant with the NCAA Division I football analytics division. I'll have this linked with some resources if you want to do a little background. Where you'll analyze stadium attendance and fan engagement data. Maybe a little bit loose on the engagement stuff. I wish I had more, but we'll at least start with attendance, and maybe I'll do fill rate. You're going to build on your skills in Tableau using best practices, but you're getting better. So your visualization should get better. You should be getting a lot of feedback. You should get really be paying close attention to detail and thinking about maybe those smaller things. And you'll see different types of visuals based upon the data that we have. You're going to try and use this data to uncover some sort of insights about stadium utilization, fan engagement patterns, attendance. There's 1,000 different things that you could look at in this. It's very open-ended. It's very much like how we work with data. The goal is to help the strategic planning committee make informed decisions about optimization, scheduling strategies, maybe fan experience initiatives, paying attention to kind of attendance and those things. We are working with pre-COVID data just because COVID caused some issues, and we're waiting to get updated data, but we'll assume things are relatively similar, which may be a strong assumption, but it's what we have to do with. We're going to work with effective or sophisticated data management and visualization techniques where we transition a little more of thinking about, can we tell an effective story? And I know that's hard, especially with a lot of data here, but I want to give you at least that possibility as you go through. So be thinking about that as you're kind of drilling down and identifying things that you think are important, because you will be the expert as you go through. It is going to challenge you because I can't hold your hand through all of these. So making sure you're incorporating a lot of the different pieces that we've used thus far, thinking about removing clutter, focusing the attention to detail, or focusing the audience's attention as we kind of go through. In terms of required materials, hopefully everyone has Tableau and Excel, and then you'll want this college football game data, which will be right underneath the assignment. I'll show it to you here once it loads. It starts off. It is quite hideous. Some of the highlighting is just to help me guide you on where we're going to go. It has the setup here for where you're going to copy the link and put it in. Remember, the last thing you're going to do is copy your link, put it in there, save this, and submit it. Make sure you're doing all the steps. All right, so it's kind of ugly, and I talked through a lot of the different pieces. So in terms of what you're going to do, one, you're going to get evaluated on, are you following each of the things that you're doing with me? And I actually do quite a bit in this. So you're going to have the opportunity to earn back a couple points. So I'm going to grade this one out of 12 instead of 10. That way, if you miss points, one, it's not as penal, or if you spend time and you do a really good job, you can make up for previously missed points in past assignments. You won't lose more than 10 if you don't do it, if you're stressed on that kind of piece. So first piece, like always, do what I do, follow along. Then component 2, you're going to create 4 distinct visualizations using either attendance or fill rate. You could technically do two with attendance, two with fill rate, because what you're going to do is you're going to build me two dashboards. One has the first two visuals, the other has the next two visuals. So we're kind of trying to remove a little bit of clutter, less exploratory, maybe a little bit more of a pivot towards explanatory. So you're going to combine those onto dashboards. I do want a descriptive text box, so I'll talk about that in a little bit later, where you're kind of working to guide the viewer here as you go through. And like we've done in the past, I want them connected. So now you're going to have three different connections. You're going to have the one that we do together, then you're going to have your first one and your second one. In terms of how you do that, entirely up to you. You can use buttons, you can use stories. You do not want to use both. So a feature of Tableau is you can't link to various story points with the buttons. And so with the buttons, if you use them to navigate, if you put it into a story, once you click that button, it takes you out of that, and then it goes back to just basic dashboards. And so pick one or the other. You can use buttons for other things. If you have experience with buttons, in the following tutorials, I'll show you more things that you can do with buttons. But for now, just think about linking. In terms of quality standards, everything we've done before still applies. I can't show you every single thing every single time, but thinking about the professional formatting, error-free presentations, right? No typos, no major inaccuracies, consistent color scheme and visual hierarchy. So again, thinking about, and you don't have to follow the same color scheme that I do on my Tableau if you want to change it, or if you just want to have your color scheme on your two, or keep them consistent across all three, that's perfectly fine. But don't have one dashboard that's all red, one that's all green, one that's all purple, something like that. You want to get to the point where we're using color and it's consistent. I only have to learn the color once, what it means, and go through. And again, if you want to use a unique one on yours because you're nervous that I'll take off points on mine, you don't have to be, as long as it's consistent. Or if you want to use exactly what I do and then use your own color scheme, you can do that for your visuals if you want. The goal here is to just help the NCAA's strategic planning committee understand utilization patterns, fan engagement opportunities, and to help make data-driven decisions about venue selection, optimization, conference expansion. I don't need you to make specific recommendations yet. We're not at that point, but if you want to try whatever you're seeing in your visuals, or at least guide them on future avenues of analysis, if you had more time, where you would kind of look, that's perfectly fine. You can have that in that kind of text box discussion piece. In terms of deliverable, similar to what you've done in the past, go through, save it, submit the file to the Advancing in Tableau Part 3 folder. Again, you just need the Excel file with your link in there. I got rid of the data extract issue, so you should be pretty comfortable with that. Please make sure I can see all of your dashboards, and that's it, right? I only want to see the dashboards. I do not want to see all the visuals that went into it. So it really should just be on a dashboard or on the first story point with nothing clicked on. And then I can go to the second one, I can go to the third one, and I can go back as well if I need to. Okay, if you run into questions, email me, let me know, and let's jump in. Hi team. So we're jumping into the data here. This one is one where it's a little bit messier than a typical one, and I think it's really hard to go through and clean this up in Tableau or most kind of tools, even if I was doing statistical analysis. So sometimes we end up back here in a spreadsheet. Don't stress about the things that are highlighted. Those are things that I have already changed. I'll show you those things in a future tutorial, but this one I wanted to spend on, again, kind of some back-end stuff that can be frustrating with us. So if you're just, again, looking at the data initially, we've got some really cool things about college football games. So we've got dates, the team, whether or not they were ranked, the time, opponent rank, whether or not they're on TV. If I go over to Stadium, I've got the site, a number of people that attended, the fill rate, I've got the weather, all of these kind of things that I could do a whole lot with, But the first time I worked with this, I dragged it into Tableau and I was like, let me see if I can show some cool things with like score differential. And well, if I look here at the result, well, it's got multiple things in it. And on the surface, I've already shown you some things where, hey, I know how to kind of deal with this, but a lot of times, like, data is not that easy. So this data was actually scraped from Wikipedia, and invariably with scraped data, there requires a lot of back end work. And so that's kind of what we're going to focus on for this kind of portion of the tutorial is I'm going to focus on how do I work with the result data to get it kind of split up, and then this site data that we have. Notice that it's got the stadium and the city state, but it's not going to be kind of an easy way to kind of split up with it. And then next time I'll talk about things like the date, how we can kind of mess with that a little bit, the time, how we can kind of work with that to make it maybe a little bit maybe more useful. But we're going to start with the result because I think it's the easiest one. So I'm going to move this. So Control or Command X, bring it to the end. Delete this. And then I really want whether or not they won or lost. And then I want our score versus their score, which initially it seems really easy, right? So you'd go here, you'd go to the data tab, you would go to text to columns, you would go next, and then you would tell it, well, I want to split on a space, and it looks like it works. And then you'd go in, he's like, well, I could also do the dash initially. And you're like, well, damn, that dash doesn't work, right? It's not giving me a preview, but there's another type of dash. So shift up next to the 0 key typically, or not shift. There's another version of it. And then there's another, like what we call a symbol, which I don't honestly know how to even get on my keyboard. And so what I can do is I'm actually going to cancel out, and I'll actually go into the cell, and I'll go up into the command bar, and I'll just copy this funky looking dash. All right, so I'll go back in, then text to columns, do next, and then in the other, I'll put that, and then I'll do finish because it seems like it's working. And if I just look here, it does seem like it's working, but then you'll notice, right, there are some odd ones here. It's got this like relative information over here, and then well, this one didn't split. Like, what the heck's going on here? And so it causes kind of some issues, which we could go back in, right, and try to do text to columns next. And then now maybe that one is our just normal one. And then if I do next, I should just do finish, and I'll do okay. If I do that, then it overwrites things, which isn't what I want. So I'm going to have to brute force this one a little bit. And so I'll keep the result, and then I'm going to throw on a filter and just make sure, do I have any weird things? Well, I do. Right? So that's going to be a problem. I'm going to title this initially, right, own score versus opponent score. And then even over here where I don't have anything, if I do the drop down, you'll see that I have kind of some odd options. For this one, I'm not going to really care about like any special pieces. So I'm just going to honestly go ahead and delete these. Right, and then I'm just going to work from kind of left to right to figure out what's going on. So first thing, I should just see win or loss. And so I'm going to go to the filter, and I'm just going to keep everything that's not win or loss, right? So these three odd ones. And then I see that I have, well, a no contest one. It looks like it was Cal versus NC. Maybe it was a tie or something like that. I don't know what happened, or they canceled it. We could honestly say, though, there was a clear winner in the game, right? And so it makes no sense why it doesn't. So I could delete this. This may be where the band ran on the field. I can't remember. Or I could do something else. And this one is, it looks like Middle Tennessee blue-white spring game, so they're not even playing an opponent. I would, if I'm in a spreadsheet, just create a new sheet. I'll do rename. These will just be notes. And I would go into the game tab, and I would honestly just delete these four. All right, so I would hover over them, delete, right? So I'll delete, and then I'll take a note. I go into the notes and say, deleted 4 games with no win/loss result. All right, so it's a little bit kind of easier. I'm just zooming in. And then I'll go back. I'll go back to my result one, and then I'll check, okay, I have all the win-losses, right? But I have some blanks, right? So I'm just going to uncheck and do the blanks. see if there's anything there. No, because I just selected down to the very bottom, and so I can clear the filter. Then I will go left to right again. So I've gotten good on result. How about own score? Well, I see some very, very odd ones, and then I go down and I still see some kind of other ones. And so rather than checking each of these, what I can actually do is instead of this, I'll do sort largest to smallest. It lets sort everything up. Then the odd ones kind of come up. Notice, right, this one has a result of a W, but it says white. Again, it was a blue-white game. That's not a game that I really care about. So I'm going to delete that, go back to my notes. Right, I said deleted 5 games without a win-loss result. So just kind of tracking. It's a lot easier when you're actually writing up a code. And then these ones just look odd because I have a different dash. And so for these, I can honestly go in. I can go here. I can go into text to columns where I just highlight those, do delimited, and then I'll do that, and then I'll do finish. I'll do OK. Then it works and it splits. And so now I have these again. I can sort again, largest to smallest. And so I have kind of these odd ones right here. And so it's listing them as a date when I'm guessing it was June. So it reads day, month, year. So it should be like 6 to 31. And then this would be October. So 10 to 33, 3 to 8, 3 to 38, something like that. I don't know why I would expect a date or anything there. I haven't found like a way that this would like turn it to a number. So technically how dates work is they count the number of days from January 1st, 1990. And so it doesn't make any sense. So I would either delete these or I would have to go through and make some sort of assumption. It's weird that it shows the dates in different ways, but if I know that it's a loss and it's 10/28, right, well, what I would do is honestly, I would probably cut these, paste over, and then I would say, okay, October is the 10th month versus 28th, and then 10 to 26. And it makes sense that they're losing all of these games at 10 to 13, 9 to 17. July is so 6 to 7. So January, February, March, April, May, June, July. All right, so this may be then 7, right, to 6, because they would have won, right? They needed a higher score. A loss, well, this one would be 3:38, 10:33, 6:31. If that makes you uncomfortable, I would again just delete these. It's up to you. I don't really have a preference. I would do something either way. I'm going to make a note of it. So I would say, so I have 8 of these. So I would go into notes and I would say 8 games had scores as dates, replaced based on intuition. Intuition / formatting. Again, you could say deleted, be perfectly fine. I try not to delete data if I can and go through. And so again, I'll then do my kind of sorting. Then everything looks somewhat good, except for if I go to the very bottom, I again have blanks. I'll do OK. I'm not worried because they're not there anymore, so I'll do OK. I'm going to turn the filters on just to keep those blanks from bugging me. So turn them on, turn them off. I'll go to opponent score. I'm looking for something fishy. I do have something fishy, right? There's some things going on at the bottom. So again, sort largest to smallest. 59. I don't really know what these brackets are or anything like that. It must just be a mistake in it. I will make sure it makes sense. And then I'm just going to honestly replace with 59, 42, 41, 35, 33, 26, 25, 24. So this looks like 23 and 2 OTs, 21 because they would have lost, 19, 17, 10, 0, 0. And again, I'm going to make sure I'm kind of very careful here. 15, so notes, 15 observations. Observations had odd away scores. Replaced, again, using intuition. If this were my job, I would go find those games, right? Go find those games and replace. Now, I don't have time to sit here and show you all that, so but in the reality, I would, right? I would go and find them, right? It's not that hard for me to kind of look into the records to see those kind of pieces. Okay, I'll do again just a quick check after I filter things. Everything look okay. All right, looks good. All right, I will do my consummate save. All right, and then I'm going to go to another one that's going to cause all sorts of headaches. So for the site variable. So I know I'm going to have to split this up, and it's easier when there's not data involved. And so I'm just going to go ahead, Control or Command X, move it over here, and then I'll delete. And then I'm going to try and think about, well, how do I split this thing up, right? And so there are probably more ways than I can honestly even think of. I don't want to just use the comma because then I'm only going to get rid of the state and I'm still going to be stuck with the city. Plus, I have kind of some odd things here. And so I'm actually going to use a different way. And so this takes a couple of different pieces as we go through. I'm going to start by figuring out, right, using the length of the string by, it's as easy as len here, and then it tells me how many characters are in there. So I know that this is 23 characters long. All right, I'll then double click down. All right, and as I go through, well, I really want to search. Like, notice a lot of these have stadium. Bowl is going to cause problems, but a lot of these are, right, stadium, stadium, stadium. So I kind of want to see where the word stadium starts and ends. So I would do end of quote stadium, right? And if I was looking for the very beginning, I'll just use a search command. And I'm going to search this cell. Let me make sure. Nope, it's backwards. I search for the word stadium, and then I go comma. Well, where? Well, it's somewhere in here, right? And I close the parentheses. All right. So what that tells me is it's the starts on the seventh character, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, space 7. Well, later on, I'm going to want to keep everything to the right of that and get rid of everything, or everything to the right that's not the city, or everything to the left after it ends. And so I know that stadium is always what? So here's the first one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more characters to the right. And so I would do that, and then I would just do +6, right? Because then that tells me at the very end of it is the 13th character as we go through. And then what I can do is I can use this feature called the right of it. So everything right of a certain kind of piece to get the, I'm going to get the city state first. So I'm going to get city, comma, state, where I use equals right. All right, and so I'm starting with this text, comma. Well, I want everything to the right, right, of, well, it's going to be the length of the string, right, minus, right, this stadium. So basically, I want everything to the right of, let me think I'm thinking about that right, after 10 characters for this piece. So I can always close the parenthesis and enter and see if that looks right, and it does, right? So all it's doing is, right, it's basically saying, well, go to the right, right, and pick out this one here, and I can double click this down and double click this down, and sometimes there's errors. Well, why are there errors? Well, this one is now looking for bowl. So again, I'm going to use my filters, and I'll do the drop down, and basically I'll uncheck all the ones that are correct, and I'll just find the value ones, and I'll do okay, and I'll see, well, now it's not stadium, it's bowl. So I'll go into here. I will then type bowl. All right, I'll hit enter, and note this is going to be wrong because, right, bowl only has 1, 2, 3 letters after it. So I'll go back into here and do +3. Hit enter. All right, now I get the full city state as we go through. I then can double click that down, and it's still not going to work for some. So again, I go back to my filter, and this is important because I want it to just kind of stop on those various pieces. I'll do okay, and this one's dome. Okay, well, at least luckily, bowl and dome are the same number of letters, so I'll do dome, hit enter, I close the parenthesis, double click down, and I'm going through the process, I'll do okay. This one is field, right, so F-I-E-L-D, and then I go through, and then field, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4 letters after that, so I'll hit enter. This is going to cause problems later, but we'll deal with it later, and I'll do that down. We're almost to the end, I promise. Sometimes, right, data is just tough like this. So I see Coliseum. I think this is my last one if I remember. So I'll do Coliseum. And then this one's going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 at the end of it. 7, hit enter. I'll go through, double click it down. And then I'll go through, and there are no funky ones anymore, right? So I'll cancel, and I'll be okay. All right, so that's really nice. So I'll clear the filter, and then I can actually go ahead and insert this, and I can actually get just the site, all right, the actual site name. All right, so we'll say site name, and then I'll go here, and then instead of using the search and then the left, right, things of that thing, I can use, I'm trying to think how I want to get this. I want to go to the left of where Stadium starts. So I think, right, I want the left command from this text, comma, right, well, I want the length of the string. In this case, actually, I just want this. I want everything to the left of 13 characters. Let me see if that works. I'll hit enter, right, Peden Stadium, right, and then I'll double click this down. And then I'll always, again, check and make sure things kind of seem like they work. I'll do the drop down. I kind of looking for any kind of funky ones. I'm really just scrolling to the bottom. It looks like it all worked, right? And it actually really helped us by when we updated this. It's not actually end of stadium. It's end of stadium name. So we notice Coliseum, stadium, things of that nature. Now, these are duplicates. That may cause problems. Maybe they're renamed, but at least we're there. All right, and so I may just make a warning to myself of like, well, like these are done, or honestly, you could just go ahead, copy these, paste the values, and then I don't need the site anymore. If we ever lost it, we could again download it and match it back up. All right, so some other issues later on, if we're going to drag this into Tableau, you've got city, you've got state. Some of them are full names, some of them are abbreviations. Tableau actually does a really good job of grouping and combining those. But I do have these odd, weird things at the end that I kind of want to get rid of. And so what I'm going to do is I'll turn off my filters, and then I'll go here. I'll do text to columns. Next, oops, I got to click on the column. Click on the column, text to columns. And then I will do next. So number one, I do want to split on the comma. But then I have this other function that I also want to split stuff on. Notice if you wanted to scroll down to the preview, you could kind of see it. But I would do finish. And then I have city, state. Again, I can see data in here. So I'm going to click on the filters so it turns them on. And I'm just looking for kind of anything kind of super interesting. These are kind of like if they're rivalry games or something like that. Now, again, if this were my job, I would spend a lot of time going through there. But for us, I'm just looking for kind of the basics. And so I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going to delete these. Okay, one thing that you will notice is it doesn't like spaces sometimes. So let me first, let's see if there's anything odd going on here. So I'm kind of looking through here. I still have something odd. So I'm going to uncheck. I've got the battle of the text. Again, I can't make this any bigger. College game day, that's not a state or a state abbreviation. I'm seeing, I'm going through. Oh, those look good. That's not a state. Right, and again, I'll just keep going. Again, some of this is just kind of tedious. That's going to be a problem with the dash. So we'll go okay. And some of these you're already going to know, right? So Atlanta, I already know this one, right? It's in Georgia, right? So I'm just going to do Georgia, right? Copy, paste. This is Seattle. The Washington just has a dash with it, which we'll delete. And then all these Atlanta ones, so Georgia. I'll go down to Atlanta, Georgia, and then here is copy. And I'll put this in Washington, something of that nature. All right, so then I'll go kind of look. Again, I'm kind of looking for anything kind of funky. And even if I miss it, it may show up kind of odd later, but it's okay. This is the initial kind of cleaning. Everything looks okay. All right, and so what I'll do is I'll clear the filter from here. But I do have that space, right? So I actually want to trim this where I get rid of the space at the beginning, which is just equals trim. Open the parenthesis, click on it, click enter, and then it gets rid of the front space, which can cause all sorts of issues. All right, so I'm just going to copy this, paste the values right on top of state, so then it looks good. I can delete, and go ahead and save. All right, so now I have the site name, I have the city, I have the state. Again, I went through that pretty quick because I'm hoping you get faster, but sometimes you just have to clean data through here. So we're not actually going to do any visuals, but you're not going to be able to create visuals if you didn't follow along. So I'm hoping that you actually have the visuals, and then we'll kind of go ahead and read this into Tableau. And again, I didn't delete any, I don't think, so I didn't put any more notes over here. But if you wanted to, you could say like split site from stadium name, city, state, name, city, state into separate categories. Something of that kind of nature. So now we're going to save this, and then we're going to pull this into Tableau. Okay, by now I'm hoping that you can get your Excel data loaded in. All right, so I'm going to again check the use the data interpreter box. I'm not going to need anything from the notes tab or the Tableau tab. What I am going to want is, well, I want the game data. All right, and then I will bring in the stadium data. I hope that it links. It does. Then I'll bring in the weather data. And again, it's linking on that unique game ID. If it ever has like any problems, I'm not sure where, like when you drag it, sometimes it has problems, but for us, as long as this works, if not, you'll just select unique game ID in here. Again, you only need these 3 sheets, and then we can jump in. I would go ahead and just save the file so that you can just constantly hit the save button. So I'll save mine. Right, so I went ahead and just saved it as college football analysis. I would again use your basic titles. And so I'm going to go through, and I'm not going to create too many things because I want to give you all kind of a chance to do this. Your variable of interest is going to be either attendance or stadium fill rate, which is the percent of people that are going through. So I would always start with, I would do this drop down, default properties, number format, and then this is a number custom. You could do percentages and do 2 decimals, and then it will round it. For attendance, I would do a drop down. I would then do default properties, number format. You could do something where it's like a custom number, or I would just do a number custom. I don't want it to round to people, so I'll do 0 decimals. And then you could do something like people, like PPL is kind of that on there. You can display it in thousands if you really wanted to. I'll keep it as kind of normal. And then we'll go through and we'll do stadium capacity, or not capacity. We'll do default properties average. So default properties, aggregation, average, stadium fill rates, default properties, aggregation, average. So just those little small things. And I'm going to build, I don't know, maybe I'll build one from each. You're going to build 4 visuals, 2 that you put on one dashboard, 2 that you put on another dashboard, and then you can link it with a story, you can link it with a button. I'm going to leave that up to you. So you're going to need 4 visuals. Within each visual, it needs to have a text box at the bottom. So I'll build one. Again, you cannot duplicate the one that I use. And mine's going to be very, very simple. If I were you all, I would utilize these kind of map features. I think a good one may be something like, I don't know, state and attendance. And then you could do a show me and then do a filled map, something like this. When you do maps like this, don't freak out if you don't have any blanks in here because it just doesn't have data. You have one unknown. You can double click on it, edit locations, and it's just like, I don't know what null is. And you're like, all right, then you just right click, hide the indicator. If you don't want to see Hawaii, what I would then do, so you can replicate this one if you really want. How about that? I would bring in, so first off, it's Hawaii here that's really kind of forcing our map outward. So the first things with maps is I don't like to let people pan and zoom in and out. I like it to kind of auto be fitted once I get it to the way that I want. So first thing I would do is I would find the state, I would drag it to filters, And then I would first off uncheck null because duh. And then I would find Hawaii. And then I would do apply. I would do okay. And then it zooms in. And I don't want them to like be able to use the filters unless they really wanted to. But you could put that over if you wanted. So you have kind of a clear distinction here. Now to keep this map from locking or from zooming in and out like this, I'm going to click the pen, so it's where I want, and then you'll go to map. It's going to be map options, and then uncheck again, allow pan and zoom. That way I cannot zoom in and out. I'm kind of locked on where I want to be. Now, if I were doing a simple thing like this, I know that there's different cities and different teams and things like that within it as you go through. And so I would probably find a way to show maybe all of the teams in here. So I may rename this attendance. Let's say state attendance. So state attendance. And then I may do, well, I want to do by the team. All right, so I kind of want to see attendance by state. So this kind of screams table for me. So I would do rename. This would just be table of attendance. And so I would bring in, let's go bring in the team. So I'll bring that and just drop it. And then I'll do attendance. I'll do that. All right, and then I'll make it a little, maybe just a very simple table that looks something like this. Again, I don't want the nulls in there, so what I can do is I can pull again state up to filters and then just uncheck. So I'll do all. I just don't want the nulls. Apply. I'll do okay. Looks like team I don't have up there either. So I'll do team up into filters. Again, uncheck the null, apply, okay. All right, I'm actually going to drag, state to tooltip instead. That way when I hover over, sometimes it'll tell me, let me double check, team, state, attendance. There we go, and so it kind of shows it. And we could spend some time, there's got to be an easy way to change them locationally, but I'm not worried about if it's an abbreviation or something like that. And then remember, we can put this thing in the tooltip and we can link them together. So I would go state attendance. I could click on like a state and I see nothing yet. So what I need to do is go into the tooltip, right? And then instead of actually showing the average attendance, what I'll do is, right, I'll do insert, and then I can do, so actually I'm not even going to show the state, and I'll show you why here in just a second. I'll do insert because that abbreviations. I will do sheets. I will do, did I really fill it as tail? No, I did table. All right, and then I'll do okay. And again, when you hover, it may be kind of cut off, right? But this one actually works pretty good, right? So you can see all the teams and the attendance in each of those, which is interesting. I wish there was a space after that on attendance. So I would honestly go drop down, default properties, number format. And then I'll just do a space. I'll do okay, and then it gives me a space. Right? And if you don't want to, you don't have to. You can kind of leave that off. I do wish in here, can I double click and right click this format? I want it to kind of show the attendance there, but I guess it makes a little bit of sense. You'll see this state tooltip. That just means it's filtering based upon the other states. And we go through. I may make it a little bit bigger, so Control or Command B, that makes it smaller, so Shift B, something like that. Or maybe it's a little bit kind of that way. So just kind of spending some aesthetic time on it so it looks relatively nice, which is pretty cool. Let's see if Arizona has, yeah, we don't even have ASU in here. That stinks for them. Okay, and then if you want the labels on here, if I wanted to drag state over, let's see if that works. State onto label. It actually brings over and we'll do the full names. That's a little bit easier. Don't freak out that you don't have data here. It's just we don't have any data on schools from Wyoming, North Dakota, Minnesota. If you don't like the background, again, extra clutter like of this Chihuahua and Sonora, like that kind of bugs me. So I'll do map. background layers. You can change the different types, but then you can wash out a filled map so that it's just kind of showing the US. Okay, I'll do maybe one more where what else may I want to show across state? Maybe I think it depends on, I don't know. You all would build one with time. I probably would, so I might as well. Um, we'll drag time over, and then we can look at attendance, something like this. Where right now it's going by the year. It's not actually reading this time very well, is it? So that's because it's reading it as a time of day, which we'll talk about next time that we do a tutorial. Hence why I had that, I think, highlighted. So I'll actually bring the time or the date over. So I'll bring date and drag it over, and then I'll bring attendance. And then you could look across years. Maybe you want to look within years, right? So I would do something like, well, maybe I want to look at the various months, and then I'm going to let people filter by the year. So I could drag year down to here. I've got to tell it, hey, it's a year. Let's do all except for null. Do apply, do OK. All right, and then drop down. Let's do show filter. So show filter over here. It's going to look kind of ugly. I don't know why we can't exclude that. I wish that we could. But it just doesn't let us when we kind of go through. We'd have to actually go into the data and mess with it. And so what I would do is I would probably do a multiple values drop down if that's kind of okay. And then little things like this, this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for me, right? I would probably want to relabel this. And maybe I'd want to look now across, I don't know, whether there's a difference of TV. All right, if I bet I'm on here, like that doesn't look like it works. Maybe I'll bring it to color instead. Then I've got all these different networks. Well, that's going to be a problem. We'll talk about how to deal with that maybe a little bit better next time. So let's think small kind of categories. Maybe I want to look whether or not it rains or snows. I wonder if it'll let me do snow. It's kind of the same thing on there. It won't. That's unfortunate. So I could do maybe by, I don't know, could be, you could try conference. That one's going to be kind of a lot. If you wanted to go through and like color these where it's like the highest, I think you can do this where you format it and change it. Or if you just click on the color palette, I think you have to go through and actually go through and like do this, but it shows you which one, right? Or maybe I want to highlight this where, all right, I'm going to double click. Maybe I'll make this one red, and then I don't know which one is which after that. Maybe I'll do them all as gray outside of that. So, or maybe I want to highlight the biggest conferences. So if you're someone that likes that, why not then just bring conference also? Where are we at? Conference over here onto filter. Right, and then what you can do is, right, just select maybe big conferences. So I know that the ACC, the Big 10, the Big 12, those are kind of big ones, right? And so the Pac-12 is what the U of A used to be in. We'll do apply, and then we'll do OK. And now that we're looking at a line graph, it's actually not inappropriate, right, if I'm trying to look differences over time to actually modify this axis. Now, if it were a bar graph, right, we'd be a little bit cautious. So I'm going to right click and duplicate this. If for some reason I wanted to make this a bar graph, I'm not sure it'll let me. It will let me, okay? It's something of this nature. It's going to go by month. So I would actually just look at average attendance. This is one where we would want to order things maybe like this way or this way. Or my legend is cut off. So like if I was thinking kind of professionalism wise, I'm going to try and pull this maybe out a little bit more so I can see the conference. And then I could go through and like highlight the bars. I could do it by attendance, or kind of those things that you're seeing where we can kind of create sets where there are groups of people in them. So you can do that manually where it's like, are you in those groups with a like a calculated field? So I'll show that. Let me save while I'm going through here. But I would do analysis. You could do create a calculated field. And honestly, I would do like if I wanted to highlight the SEC, I would just do SEC conference. And then it would be simple as if, and then I have to remember the variable name. So it's conference, right, equals, and then in quotes, SEC, quotes, then, then, I want to just type it so it looks, right, then, quotes, yes, right, else, right, quotes, no, and then we always have to end these commands. All right, I'll make sure it works, apply, do okay, and then I could do like on to color here, and then it does this. I think this is a little bit nicer. So then I could choose yes. I certainly don't want this terrible color, but I could use yes and then no as the gray, kind of like you see in the book a decent amount of times, something like this. And you can do kind of small things with this. I think looking at these things horizontally is a little bit harder because it always wants to fill the screen. And so generally online, I like to see kind of the bar graph this way when I'm building it. But then best practices, let's go ahead, format, go to our grid lines, get none, right? Make sure those are on there. I'm looking at all my axes. I think these look relatively good. This may be one where I actually need this axis. And maybe I need this one. So I'm going to actually flip this one back around, and then I'll just change the tick marks. So I'll do edit axis. I'm getting a little bit, and then I'll do tick marks. I'll do fixed, and then you can kind of see maybe this makes a little bit more sense, right? Where it's 10,000, something of that nature. You can do minor ones as well, where it's like in there. I think that's kind of distracting in general, so I'll leave it with kind of automatic. And kind of go that way. You can make it again a little bit bigger by Control B or Control Shift B this way. So maybe you're kind of getting a little bit more, right, kind of going through. It looks a little bit nicer, right? Then you could go back and do the same thing where, right, I have all these conferences, but I actually don't want it by this. I think I can do conference by path. That's not what I want. I want the line graph. Problem is, I want, if I'm thinking through, let me go rename here. This would be a bar graph. All right, and then I'll go to sheet 3. I really want this to be a line graph. That line graph. So I may have to just do it. I'll do color. Let me see if I can do. Where is that SEC conference by color? I think it's going to go back down to 2 lines. It's kind of all the others. So if I do Control or Command Z, let me think. A lot of this just kind of playing around. So maybe detail. There we go. So I get them on the various ones, where then I can go through and I can do SEC on the color. You can still do the conference onto labels. So if I wanted to kind of get rid of things, I could then do conference. Where are you? My brain's not working. I can always title this, but I just want, if you ever get lost, conference. All right, so I'll do conference onto the label. And then I think that you can click and move these around sometimes. I think it's a formatting these, but for now, we won't kind of worry about it. So what I would do is then I would right click, again, best practice. I think those grid lines are distracting, so I'm going to turn them off. I don't know that we need this to start at 0, right? Because it's not a bar graph. Bar graphs we do, right? But this one, I'm just looking at relative differences. I still think it's too cluttered with too many of these on here. And so I would go to the tick marks. I would do fixed. And then this one, maybe I think 10,000 looks too little, but I'll do 5,000, something of that nature. All right, so it kind of goes through. Notice that I cannot see the months at the bottom, I would want to expand this whole thing. All right, we're going to make it easier so that we can see all these. And then notice it has January, then August, September, October, November, December. That's because a lot of the bowl games are actually in January. If we're just going to look at the regular season, I honestly might right click and exclude this as we go down. And you can see I can actually go through, remember, drill down from our type of story. Right? You can actually click in and look in September within the days. Right? Really cool stuff that we can do working out. I'm going to go back because I don't want to go that deep into it. But then we can kind of see those basic things. And if you don't like these axes, I believe what we could also do, it would be, we'll go in and we'll take our attendance, right, something like this, and maybe we'll drag that onto, oops, you may also want to like mess with like the size of the lines. I think we're getting a little bit wild here. So maybe instead of that, I put it on maybe the label as well, where it actually, right, we'll go through each one. I wish it would do it on each data point. I think you have to mess around with kind of the path on those. If you check this, it will allow it. Mark labels, you can go through, you can do minimum or maximum. Where things get a little bit dicier here, you can do per cell. So there's how you kind of go through and do it per the different ones. This is like each various one. So we'll just go with the table. View within each of the panes. I don't really love that. So, oh, I have to max them in, duh. If I go to all. But you could do selected or highlighted. So where you can kind of highlight and it should show it to you. Come on now. Right now it does line ends, I believe. I could do highlighted. Should actually show it, but it's not going to do it. If I select, okay, if you select, it actually will go through and show it that way. So we'll go with just path. The label, we'll do all. That way it's going to show us kind of at the end. If you wanted to kind of add some analytics just to get related to the average, you could do, I don't know, lots of things that I kind of want to show, but let's just do an average line. You can actually build out whichever one you want just to show the average attendance. Where again we would do not the format. You could do format because I kind of like this light black, and then I like to, again, if I can get away from Tableau text, I will. You can go all sorts of things. There's a very famous documentary on Helvetica. Let's see if it has Helvetica in here. It doesn't. So we'll do the standard. I'll do Times New Roman. All right, and then I will go in and actually edit it. So right click, edit. All right, and then I'll do the display, average, custom, average. So this is where I would shorthand on the titles, average attendance equals, and then we want the actual value. All right, okay. All right, so then you can kind of see relative to them, which is really nice and interesting. All right, I don't think we need the date up here. It's kind of useless, so we'll hide that. Again, if you don't want to kind of keep these, you really could. So if I'm, again, trying to think about getting rid of it, so I could just uncheck the show header where it goes there. This is one's kind of 50-50. So now I'll build a dashboard similar to, again, what you may do. This one, I'm going to want you to actually play around with the sizing. So two things that a lot of people missed last time where they didn't bring over a navigation button. So start with that. Bring the navigation button, make it floating, bring it over here. Which, are you going to drop and let me do it? Oh, it's just going slow. All right, my computer's going a tiny bit slow. So when that happens, we save. I'll try and restart. Okay, so I'll put this down here. If you like the buttons, if you like the story, just go ahead and create it and have this be instructor story. And then you're going to do new story point, right? You're going to do student 1, and you can rename this, please do. Student 2. Okay, so then you'll have them linked that way. If you are someone that likes buttons, go ahead, rename this instructor, all right, dashboard, and then go ahead and create your second 2. All right, rename, all right, student 1 dashboard, and then this one, rename student 2 dashboard. All right, and I'm not looking for crazy visuals here. Now I'm looking for you to start doing kind of aesthetic things correct. And so for my dashboard, if I were going through, so then I would bring over probably a tiled text. I'd go over and I would say, use AI tool to help write about the visual. Write about the visual. And I'm automatically going to go and just change this, right? I don't care what you use as long as it's something I like. So I was just trained to use this. And for goodness sakes, make it bigger, right? And then it's automatically fit to this. I'll probably double click inside of it. I like to, again, I'll go off of this. So I'll do black. Since this is going to be at the bottom, let's do left justified because of how your brain likes to look. All right, and then I'll start doing, so I'll do show dashboard title, and so I'll do something like general attendance analysis. All right, and again, I don't like to kind of stick with the default, and again, it does not have time, it does not have spell check, so you got to be very careful. I'm kind of being careful here, but I would probably almost all the way go through and kind of check it for college football games. All right, so I'll do apply, I'll do okay. I notice I haven't messed with the size. I'm going to do that after I save it and I show it to you. So I'll bring over the state map, something like this. Again, I don't love when things are over here. If you do stack a bunch of things, okay, maybe that will work. So maybe I'll undo this and I'll uncheck floating. It's going to try to stick over. You could put it here and kind of use this way. I like to go vertical just the way my eyes are, but it's kind of up to you. If I were going to do a navigation button, I would put it top right just because people can go across, but I just don't like that it cuts off the dashboard title, right? I think it should go all the way across. And so hence why I do this. I typically will make it floating. And it's hideous early, but I promise it kind of pays off later. So I'll make this thing floating. So I'll do floating here. I'll bring it. And I would honestly format this, like this 15,600, it bugs me, right? So you can do format, and you can do this legend, and then you can tell it the different ones. This isn't a format. This is a, I don't want to edit the title. I can change the layout so that it's multiple rows. I think I may have to go in. Let me go back to the state attendance. Right click. Can I do, man, I really want to do this legend. I just don't want it to show 15,637. So I may do advanced, and then I'll do start. All right, just do 16,000, and then I'll do end 104,000. That way it kind of shows it maybe a little bit easier. I'll do okay. All right, you can play around with the colors if you really want, but just small like aesthetic things that you kind of think make it look a little bit easier. All right, and again, I may like adjust it to where it looks a little bit easier. I can't delete this. Then I'll do, maybe I like the table already in this, and so I will make a note to them, right? It's as simple as bring over the text box, except this one I probably want floating. Right click, I'll change this to floating text. All right, so hover over each state to see the attendance breakdown by team. All right. And again, it's hard to see, right? And I want them to see it, so I'll pull them in with red. Maybe I'll make it italics. I would still do spell check. I still think this is kind of small, which I'll do undo. So I'll change this 9 to 12, something like that. And then, right, you can do things where, all right, it's kind of, you've got to kind of go through, all right, where they kind of see, so then they know, oh, I can look it over by each one. All right, notice that if you kind of are careful with this, it doesn't have a logical ordering. You can actually change that by going up here. And I think if you go big to small, it will do that. Let me make sure. Let's go back. Ohio. Yeah, big to small, big to small, big to small, things of that nature. So then it works and looks a little bit nicer. Then I can bring over maybe my line graph, so it's still on tiled. So I'll do back to tiled. I'll do line graph here, bar graph here, and then I know it looks hideous, so then I'll bring this to the bottom, something of this nature. Then it's just spending some time making it kind of look a little bit nicer, a little bit kind of cleaner. So this has got a lot of white space that doesn't need to be there. A lot of that's because of our spacing that we did. You can manually start messing with this. What I may do is I'll do this drop down and I'll do fit to entire view. All right, that way it kind of fits this view. It makes our life a little bit easier. You don't need this. I think it makes sense. You don't really need a legend on it. So you could go ahead and delete. If I go back to my bar graph, maybe I've decided again that I want attendance. All right, so I'll find attendance onto the label. I look at it like this, and it's horizontal, so it's easy to read. Then I can right click, and then I can remove this axis. So I'll uncheck a header. I don't know why it does that. I can actually hide this as well if I use like a simple like title here. So I could do edit title at top attendance, and we'll just say like, yeah, I'll say top average attendance by conference. And again, I would do the spell check. I would maybe bold this. Everything I've been using has been Times New Roman, so I'll go ahead and do that. I'll do apply, and then I can look, and it looks relatively nice. Now, I don't really need this. I can right click, and I can do remove. Oh no, that's not what I want. Undo. Hide field labels, I think. There we go. And then now I can actually buy myself a little bit more space. So my visual kind of takes up the very basic pieces. And again, you could flip this if you really want. And so then I could do attendance by month for the top conferences. Again, spending a little time going through. Times New Roman, up here, bold, apply. Oops, unbold, apply. That. And then notice how things are aligned. Why is this not bolding? Apply, do okay. But then it kind of fits. These are a little bit crammed for my kind of taste, so why not? First off, I have year and year because they're with both of my filters, so I'm going to go and I'm just going to delete this. And then I can do year of date. That's weird. So I'm first off going to, I want to edit the filter. It's not what I want to do. I want to rename it. All right, so edit title, and I'll just put year. I do okay. That looks a little bit easier. If you don't like this type of filter, I kind of like the single value slider, where it will start on 2001, and then you can kind of move it across each one if you really wanted. So that's kind of a thing there. It does always keep null in there, which is really unfortunate. But then kind of where you want your filters are up to you. I may put them at the top this time. And then that's the only filter that we really have. And so I would go in, this would be attendance, so average attendance by state. We could do, again, bold, consistent, apply, and then something of that kind of nature. Now, again, I still want more space, right? So I would probably, if I really wanted, I could go wider, so 1100. That feels a little bit nicer to me. It could go a little taller. That seems a little bit cleaner to me. Kind of the various pieces and kind of go, and a lot of it's just kind of playing around. All right, and so then now I could pull this, make it a little bit nicer. Oops. Again, you got to make sure your font kind of works, right? You kind of see it all right. So all of it is just kind of taking your time and going through. And then like I would kind of want to hover over one of these and see the map kind of work through. So again, I'm going to do save just to be safe. I would do analysis, or I would do, sorry, dashboard. I would do action. All right, and then I'll do an add action where you could do a highlight. Let's do that one where, let's say I hover over the bar graph and then it talks to, I really only want it to talk to the state map. And then I want it to be on hover. All right, that looks good. Do okay. I can hover. I notice it doesn't work because it doesn't have the conference anywhere in here. So we have to go back and tell it, right? So it has to know how to communicate. And so I'll do this drop down here. And there's another way. You could actually go on the dashboard and you can actually use this thing as a filter, which again, sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. This one actually doesn't. So I can click here, go to this, and all I need is, well, I need the state somewhere in this. I kind of hide it. You can use it as a filter. I think I would just do state onto, if you put on the tooltip, sometimes like it shows that distracting dot. And so I may just bring it up to a filter. Yeah, we'll do all values. I think we'll just do all except for null, apply, do okay. Then we'll go back to the instructor dashboard. Doesn't have the state in there. What's going on here? Okay, I figured out what it was. It just didn't know the details of each one, so I'm not sure why it's going nuts. So I need to grab conference, drag it onto detail. It looks like nothing is happening. I would probably take state off the text and then just put the label, show marks. What the heck's going on here? Undo. Text on it. Labels. You could uncheck these. So like notice how some of them are shorthanded, which may confuse people. What you could do is you can then go to map options, or not map options, background layers, and you can actually check what's on here. So this doesn't currently have the border names, right? So a lot of that is probably because I washed it out. And so you should still be able to force that mark label on there. Then I really want to know, I don't want the county names because that's too far. You can do crazy data stuff on this. So if I pull this, oh, you can't see it. All right. If I pull this over, you can add like average household income on top of things, which is nuts. Like you go nuts in this thing. I obviously am not going to have you do that because then you could go really, really wild. But I guess I'll have to leave the names the way they are. I will undo just to avoid keeping that. I'll go back to instructor dashboard. Now, if you hover over, it highlights up, and we actually have a lot of our states that we want. All right, so something clean here. This is kind of white, and so I may honestly, I think the easiest way to modify would be right click up in the header here, and then you could do format title, and it brings like the whole dashboard shading up. And so the light gray tends to like make our eyes a little bit easier, a little bit calmer, kind of those pieces. And then we'll scroll. You will have to change the navigation button a little bit. Again, you may want to use a button, like actually bring in an image like last time. You could also, first off, you're going to have to edit this, and then you're going to tell it, take me to student dashboard 1. That's going to be yours. And then we could do the title to something like student dashboard. You can name it whatever you want, dashboard 1. You can do the border if you want. Again, we don't really need borders sometimes because they get distracting. But you can mess around with the different fonts. You can change the text to black, maybe bold, my italics. You can kind of see it. Background with black is a little bit harder. There, apply, something like this. And then I like to always throw a like this, so like hover, so click to see the next dashboard, right? Apply, okay, something like that. And if you ever want to preview it, again, you go to presentation mode, and it should look like this. This is one where honestly, like, so, and get me back, but I'll go here. This is where like I may actually want a border around this because there's so much gray space to the side. So you can again go back here, format title. You can do a border around it. I think that will do just the dashboard title. So I may not want that one, but the worksheet titles, the text objects, you can kind of do like a background with a layout. I don't really want to mess with these. A border would be black. So that I think will go all the way around it if you're clicked on each random visual. If I just click off of this and then I want to go through, let's say, I don't actually know how to put a background on the entire one, where maybe under the format tab, borders. So it's always going to click on a sheet that I want. So rows, columns, so I'm not on anything. I had to mess with this. Format, dashboard, shading, title, this, but if I click off and I go to presentation mode, it doesn't have anything around it. So maybe you have to play around to kind of see that. I know there's a way to do it on the back end of all of this. I'm trying to think of the best way to do it. I won't stress about it right now. So only want that first instructor visual looking at it. So then you're either going to put this into a, you're going to leave it with just this, or again, if you don't like buttons, you're going to drag the instructor dashboard over. All right, now what you're going to have to do is you're going to need to make this fit. I do not want to have to scroll left and right. And it's easy to do this, right? Just modify it this way, right, until you get to that point where you're not really having to go left or right. So I'm doing this, and then this, and then so now I'm not going left or right within two visuals, if that makes sense. Right? Because if I go here, all right, then I've got to go up and down and left and right. I should be able to see it all based upon how you do it, right? And so I'll go this. That one looks like it's wide enough. All right, then I'll go tall so I can see everything wide, right? And I don't want to see kind of that app background, right? So now it's kind of thinking through just ways to make it a little bit easier. So maybe something like that. I like kind of just the dashboard. Okay, before we wrap up, I do want to show you kind of small things. So I actually closed and opened up on a new browser here, just because I wanted to show you that sometimes you have to be careful with the formatting, and you can actually edit this online, but just being kind of cautious there to make tables bigger, Control Shift and then B, Control B, do that. I think on a Mac that's consistent, but if it's not Control, it's Command. Little things you always want to be careful of. Notice my names are cut off if I'm zoomed in here, so fitting that kind of piece. Confirming the grid lines are off. So I know some people will save and they'll go into the grid lines and it'll say none and they still see it. Make sure it's also on rows they're turned off, columns they're turned off. That way you don't have any issues, right? And so if I go here, I need to go to the grid lines. It looks like we're good, but sometimes they do show back up if you don't turn them all off on that piece. The last thing I'll kind of show is something that was bugging me and I've had some people ask about would be, what do we do for like nulls? So I'm going to go on this simple graph here. We had it for a year. Yours a little bit more complicated. I'm going to make sure everything is set up on all. I may want to honestly add, if I were thinking this, I may add a filter here for year if I had a little more time, but I know I'm pushing you all here. But if there's like nulls that you don't want in on this piece. Now, I know that we kind of grouped these with conference. There was a missing one there. So we do have to be a little bit kind of careful, but I really don't want this filter to have all in here. And this took me a long time to figure out. But so how we do that, how we mess with it is for this, whatever affected null there is, what we're going to do is we're going to just drop down and we're going to do what we call a duplicate. So you see this copy of the measure. I'm then going to bring it into the filter. I'm going to select years because that's what that filter is. And I'm going to do next. And then I'm going to do null, exclude, apply, OK. And it doesn't change this because it wasn't impacting it, but I do still see it over here. But now what you should be able to do with this filter is do this drop down and select only relevant values. And then when I go in here, that null is gone, which is really, really nice. And so if you want that filter maybe here, I don't love that these whites are offset. You could do something simple like right click and format these, where you can change the fill on each of these to maybe be a little bit more maybe consistent with whatever the header is. That way it's not as drastic. I could do the same thing here. You can't do it on the map, the background, once we wash it out. Doesn't kind of match up. I don't love that just because my lines go away. But you could go in and change your colors. I just wanted to show it to you, so I'm going to undo a couple of those things. Again, up to you. If you left it like this, that's perfectly fine. We're going to make sure all of our buttons fit. There's no dot, dot, dot. And I'll show you kind of some last pieces here. There, let me think if there's anything else. If you did want to add a filter, you could do drop down. You could have filters, and then you could bring over that year date. It does kind of take up all this space. I don't know why. I guess I have to tell it again. Drop down. Only relevant values, and then I would probably do this one would probably be worth a slider here, and then make it floating, and then move it here, something like that. And then I'll delete this piece. Okay, and as we go across, notice that it is only working on one thing. Right, and so we want to apply the filter to all the visuals. Instead of going back, we should be able to do this drop down, apply to worksheets. Again, you could do all, but I like to select the ones, and then just to make sure everything is going to kind of work. Then you see things kind of modify over time if you want. Make sure it's always set to all before you save. Okay, so let's go ahead, save locally, so I'm going to do file, save. Hopefully you've been saving throughout. Again, if you put this on the story already, notice some things do update, which is really nice. Just being kind of cautious, but I like the buttons, but again, it's up to you for you. What we're going to do is we're then going to do file, save to Tableau public as, and I would probably go ahead and I don't care which one we're looking at. If you'd rather look at yours first, that's perfectly fine. But I will change the title here. So I'm going to log in. I won't waste your time showing this. All right. So it's going to go again. Make sure you kind of see everything. It's going to think through. All right, so then have it, I can kind of look. And again, the spacing is a little bit different. How we grade it is we'll always go into full screen mode. I'm going to make sure all the buttons work. Hopefully I can do that, but make sure I get kind of a button back. That back is there. If there are things on here that you ultimately see that are small and you want to edit, you can actually go in, if you're signed in, which I have to sign in, which makes sense because I signed in to save it, it should automatically do it. You can actually go into Tableau Public and edit from here. So if there are small things you want to clean up, then you just go to publish and you can close and you'll see it on your profile and it will update. I, again, would probably edit this just to be a little bit more professional. It's not super intuitive on where to do it. I always have to kind of think about it, but down in the edit details, I would go here, something like this would make more sense to me. You could describe it if you want to, but I'll then save the changes. Then it's just a little bit more professional, and again, you can kind of help yourself kind of that way. All right, so please make sure you go through the assignment here and that you're making sure that you have everything that we need, things look nice, and if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know.